Welcome back to another episode of the Barcode Collective podcast. My guest Lizzie Pereira is joining me, a Pasadena holistic hustler.
Oh yeah,
that's something that I've been saying to myself here, because everyone, they try to ask like, what is it that you do? And I'm like, well, I do a lot. I'm a hustler, and it happens to be in kind of this holistic approach to health and wellness. So I definitely see that in you, and I want to learn how that came to be. You own One Life Yoga, the Pantry Shop, as well as the Salt Studio, right?
Yeah.
So like I saw that trifecta making moves over there. And I think sometimes like in this space, like a holistic hustler kind of has a little, duality there that doesn't probably fit for most. So like, I'm really interested in how, where that ambition comes from.
Yeah.
How challenging it is to keep that ambition within the health and wellness space. And what, drives you. So first off, thanks for taking time to join me here.
So, I've never been called a holistic hustler, and I feel like that's like the perfect little 2 words.
Could that be our first collaboration?
Yes.
Let's throw that on a t-shirt. Let's go. I've actually been reaching, I've been trying to get that Instagram handle. I was going to change everything. I think I might already own a version of the domain.
All right. Well, you let me know.
And let's go.
That's right.
So with that, why don't you maybe just share a little bit of your background, kind of however far back you want, whatever you think is, part of your story that got you to where you currently are.
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, I definitely am a multi-hyphenate in the wellness space. And it really, it goes back years to college, but I guess, present as it is now, I do run the Salt Studio. We do massage therapy, holistic, different types of therapy, halo therapy, which is salt therapy, energy work, things like that. I also run One Life Yoga and the Pantry, which is our little sister retail business that we created during all of the pivoting that had to happen during the pandemic. I also am a teacher as well, an instructor in my own right. So I teach yoga and movement, and I'm really passionate about that. And I also do a lot of events. And my first dive into the wellness space was really actually through food. Okay. So I worked as a plant-based chef for years and worked at it with a woman when I graduated school. So I really dove deep more into the nutrition route. And then it kind of just slowly started to kind of ripple outward, and it started to just pan out into these different kind of plates that I guess I'm spinning now. And it's funny, that relationship to hustle can have a not a negative connotation, but I feel like there's we do want to make sure that we're, embodying a bit more of a grounded place of that hustle. And I think that that's kind of what I like to share, is that I'm hustling, I'm running around a lot, especially lately. But doing it from a place of feeling really anchored in myself because of the practices that I've cultivated,
Definitely. And I think I don't know, more often than not, but at least my story is that in regards to the hustle, it's not necessarily coming from a good place. It's usually coming from a place of inadequacy or trying to prove more. So luckily, my hustle is also in the health and wellness space, and I have acquired some tools to use as well. And I think just a reminder for everybody that, what's being grounded looks like for each one of us might be different,
totally.
And as a reminder for myself too. Yeah. So people that are around me, sometimes I'm a little harder on them, and I forget that whatever it is that their craft is, or whatever it is that they need to do to be grounded, looks completely different to me. I can go, pretty hard. And, my go-to practice is breath control or breath work. And even with that, it's not the typical breath work that people would probably be imagining. Oh, that's good. You sit down for 30 minutes and you do this practice. Yeah. No, I walk around consciously nasal breathing and bringing my, it's a walking meditation, essentially. Yeah. It's every moment that I get a little triggered, it's nasal breathing. And that's as little as it is, that has such a Like it is keeping me together.
Because it's like really, you know, so many people are just walking around unconscious of their breath and therefore breathing incorrectly. And therefore, you know, probably experiencing higher levels of stress because their breath has traveled up higher into their diaphragm, right? So it's like, even if that awareness of just as much as you can walking around in your daily life, being aware of being in a belly breath is like so anchoring and grounding. And like, I think that that's, you know, something that a lot of people don't really do.
That's what's really awesome
hard.
about this stuff too, is like, it can be as passive as that. I mean, it's an active practice, but it is very passive. It's like, you don't really need to sit down to do these things for an hour.
Exactly. You know? Or you don't need to do the, like, it has to be a meditation and then a juice and then a breath work and then a yoga practice and then a swim and then a run, you know, like I think, and I used to fall victim to that, where I used to be really almost like hyper regimented about what something like a morning routine had to look like. Yeah. And that definitely came from like an overly perfectionist tendency. You know, I like, same thing. Like I used to go really hard and I still go hard, and, you know, I am a hustler, but you know, if it means that like, I just have to do an 8-minute breath practice in the morning and that's it, like that's it. And that's fine. You know, it doesn't mean that like my body is going to like collapse during the day. You know?
Sure. With, so a lot of the things, I guess, like say the yoga and all that's, you know, came to be from like the cooking and stuff, but it's obviously things that you're passionate about and you continue to teach. Yeah. Do you ever feel any resentment towards that or towards the other people that can just practice? There's a couple ways that I could kind of frame that. One is that like sometimes when I'm practicing, it almost sounds like there's the teacher part of me that's in the back of my mind that it is hard to get out of that. I have found that the more I just practice, and it just takes a little bit of time, and then I can really just, you know, drop into the practice. And there is a level when you're teaching, there's a requirement of like holding the space, you know, it's more than just, you know, teaching the asana. It's like making sure everybody's safe. Everybody can have their own unique experience, right? Because one body versus the other is completely different. You know, there might be an injury, there might be someone who's pregnant, et cetera. So you really have to be like, looking around the whole room the entire time. So there is that element that can be hard to turn off. And your work is what you love, you know? And so I think that sometimes make it that there is a bit more of like a personal attachment to something like work, whereas some people might be able to turn it off at 5 p.m. and leave. If something, you know, happened during class or if something, you know, if there's something that's bothering me about that, like I'm going to hold that. Yeah. But in terms of how I practice, I think what's helped me is just like, again, a little bit of just like a softening around it, you know, like I'm not going to be mad at myself if I only get 20 minutes to practice on my own. You know, to me, that's fantastic. For a modern day human who might, you know, be quite sedentary, 20 minutes, great, you know? So I feel like I've let myself relax a bit about it a lot more as I've just come into myself and kind of like wizened up a bit as a teacher. But there is that like little part of me that doesn't turn off very easily. Yeah, you mentioned like the need to hold space for people at times. Who holds space for you?
Gosh, I have incredible friendships. I'm part of a women's group. You know, you're part of a men's group. So I think that my friends really keep me, you know, held very well as my partner. You know, my partner Reza, who I run these businesses with, of course, holds a lot of space for me, but we work together. We're in a relationship. We're like so ingrained in each other's lives that both of us he also is in a men's group. So us having support in that way is really great. You know, I have a couple mentors and teachers that I work with. You know, being in wellness means that you meet a lot of people in wellness who do great work. So I have been exposed to some really amazing healers and gifted teachers that have also helped me. But I think the main thing is my friendships. Like I've got really great friends.
That's awesome.
Like my high school yearbook, my mom wrote like, friends are the chocolate chip to the cookie of life. And I remember when she put it, I was like, hey, that's kind of lame. You know, like being a high school senior, I remember thinking it was kind of weird. But it's true. Yeah. Really, the friendships that you have and the company that you keep around you is really important.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Did you grow up here in Pasadena area?
I'm an East Coaster.
East Coaster? Yeah, how long have you been out Boston. This way?
I have been here since I was 18. I went to USC, so I came here for school. So I've been here about 12 years.
Okay.
So
still local now? So like a local name?
I drive a Prius. I want plant-based.
You're in.
You know, I'm in
Beautiful.
it. I'm in it.
What's
So
up?
I don't see myself going back to the cold anytime soon.
So transitioning from being the plant-based chef, cook,
Yeah.
to yoga, is that what that was that first transition?
Sort of. I mean, it's funny. It's like they've still stayed to somewhat interwoven. Like there was a time where I was doing catering and private chefing, which I don't do anymore. It's just so labor intensive. But I do like events with food. I also have like a vegan dessert line that I'll also do like special runs for holidays and stuff like that. So it is there, but I have transitioned definitely more into movement and that kind of stuff.
What was the biggest challenge in taking that step into owning a studio?
Oh gosh.
Because did you teach first and were like, I
taught there and managed there. So I came into the team. Reza and I weren't together when I joined the team at One Life Yoga. And I had finished my training and stepped in as manager because I had managed another studio in the past in downtown. So I did have experience managing a space. It wasn't as like business savvy. It was very just like, lots of burners, very communal, donation based, not a lot of like business savvy type of stuff going on there. I have to really give it to my partner, Reza, who is definitely like the one that has shown me what it takes to run something like a business. And he's the one that handles a lot of the like finance type of operation stuff. I'm the one that's dealing with like our marketing, customer service. And I don't know, there's a part of me that really just loves like providing space for community, like providing space for people to gather, and I feel like that was a pretty seamless transition because like food is a place where people gather, right? We all gather around the table, we gather around a meal, and, a yoga space or a community, a shala, is a space where we gather to move and breathe. So it's like they actually work quite well together. It hasn't been something that was this like hard stop switch,
Yeah. Do you struggle with, having say multiple brands and like the connection of the two or like trying to, so
I think it's not even that I think I create that struggle for myself. There's been times because my path has seemed to kind of like unravel before my eyes a lot of the time, my mind can get very busy and very like, well, where are we headed? What's next? Like, how does this all fit together? There becomes my mind that gets a little, what's the right word? Just gets a little like transfixed on the label of it all without just when in reality, it's me just letting it all unfold. Yeah. And so there's a bit of a struggle, I think, that I'm creating for myself more than anything else, right? Because a lot of the times it has worked seamlessly. The retreats that I've done, like, you need food and you need to move and you need to hold space. So it all does work a lot really well a lot of the time, but also allotting time to what thing you want to be working on, right? Like with being a teacher, it has meant that some of that food element has fallen to the wayside, and there has been a moment of like identity crisis of like, well, I was the food girl and like I was the vegan girl. So now what am I? Am I still making the food or am I just switching to yoga? So but it is more of just my wheels spinning about it, I feel like. Yeah.
And you said in regards to the pantry shop, that was a little pivot during the pandemic. And was that's literally right next to One Life? Like
so it's a part of it's part of our space. So that room was previously a meditation and a workshop room. And so when we were kind of mid-pandemic and we were kind of starting to do some classes, we built an outdoor tent behind in the parking lot, which had seen all of the elements, like rain, wind, fire, like us at 6 a.m, like running over it to see if we can keep it alive. Yeah. But the pantry came about because we just had this empty space that was just really not being utilized. And Reza also has owned a beer and wine store down in Silver Lake that also does, different types of grocery. And it was doing really well and just providing like the necessities for people. Because it was at the time like when lines outside of the grocery store, like toilet paper wars, like everyone trying to get all the rice that they could find. So we kind of did our own take on that to start. And it had a couple of reiterations. There were some things that just weren't necessary, didn't really work. Mainly as it is right now, it's like a refill shop actually, and we have a refill section that has like all of the main cleaning products that you would need, and a refill all glass. And then we also do CSA, which do you know what CSA is?
No.
It stands for Community Supported Agriculture.
Okay.
And essentially cuts the middleman out between a farmer and the consumer.
Oh,
so
awesome.
once a week we go, and it's actually a local spot in Pasadena. It's an urban farm,
Dope.
essentially. And so we get produce boxes from them, which our students can order.
That's really awesome.
So it was really cool. And there was a time where I was doing CSA cooking club. So like on Sundays on Zoom, I'd be in my kitchen and like making food out of these ingredients, because a lot of people didn't know what some of them were.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. It was a cool little pivot that we're still like working out, but it has been a nice little offshoot of what we do, because both my partner and I aren't interested, we love yoga, we love movement, but we do love food. We do love looking at ways to just be a bit more sustainable and trying to spread that to our people.
And you are currently going through a relocation. So is that, are you seeing enough success with the pantry shop to integrate that with the new space?
Yeah, we'd like to. And thankfully there is the space. So we're moving our space. We're moving our location to a different spot in Pasadena, which is, as we were talking about earlier, it's a little can of worms, man. But yeah, we do have the space for retail. So we hope to continue it there. We've talked about maybe at one point, like if it works out and if there's the need for it, of creating its own separate retail space. We did talk about that at one point. So it's kind of like time will tell, but for now we're just going to kind of like take it with us over to the new spot.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
I might need to pick Rez's brain about
You should.
some things,
Yeah.
like so with the fronts of the space bar and like kind of transitioning to lifted botanical bar, like the vision there is to create a little bit more of like an apothecary type of setup and kind of a non-alcoholic bottle shop.
Yep. Which there's such a need for, and I think that would be really successful.
So yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Again, like resources for me are like handcuffed right now.
Talk to him about
So
it.
just seeing what that could look like. And then also, I mean, the branding needed. So I do everything.
Yeah.
Like I do
all the hats,
all of it. And like, at times trying to find money and like all of that. And it's like the branding is like, I really do enjoy these things. And it's like, now I'm investing in say this thing and it's just, it's freaking insane. But I feel like I'm so close to so many cool ass things that I just need like a little support. You know what I mean?
I mean, you should definitely talk to him. He does business consulting, like everything under the sun. He's probably done at some point. Just having the conversation of just like picking his brain about a couple things. He'll probably have something that would be a little nugget that could help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. So I should make some time for that.
Yeah.
Does he also teach?
Yeah, he's also a teacher. We have a very different style of practice, but yeah, he teaches as well.
Are your men's and women's groups that you guys are part of, are they facilitated through your guys' like yoga or? No,
they're actually separate. They came from Reza's been in it for a couple of years, just through a community that we're both in. It's a plant medicine community, but also just a community as it is. And then I actually started the women's group with another friend. I had these it was 6 different female friends of mine. We'd all had these separate conversations about really wanting this idea of coming together. And so one day I just was like, all right, I know I've talked about it with you. I've talked about it with you. I've talked about it with you. Let's all meet and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And so we've been doing that. We've been meeting every other Tuesday since I think it was February, maybe.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it's so good.
That
so
is.
Nourishing. And it's very different from how Reza's men's group is structured. It's a bit more, a little bit, we have our own structure, but we definitely do things very different. But it's really cool to see how it nourishes us both.
Yeah.
Yeah, and gets what we need.
Yeah, I mean, it is really impactful. I mean, when we do post and share of the meetings, like there's a lot of outreach.
I bet.
I think most also like the groups that I'm in, like the guys don't look a type of way.
Yeah.
So it's, there's a lot.
Do you guys have like a structure to it, or is it just like?
Yeah, it's
sharing?
it's pretty open, but like the structure is like a brief moment to check in. So the goal is to kind of get familiar with maybe some feelings that we haven't been able to access in the past because we weren't maybe told that it's okay to access those, right?
Totally.
So that's always probably one of the more challenging
especially
parts to like be able to figure out what that is. And then starting with a brief little share, a little check-in, we call it, and kind of labeling it from a 1 to a 5, 5 being like, hey, things are pretty heavy right now.
Yep.
I'm feeling, sadness in my chest or whatever that looks like. And then kind of trying to keep that short to get around the group.
Right. How big is it?
I mean,
It looks like it's pretty big.
today we had like 8. Yeah. So that was pretty good, so getting through that, like I started today and like, I just wanted to go straight into, I'm like, motherfucker, I'm 4 pushing 5 right now.
I know, I get it.
So sometimes you can just like start there.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we got to get around this group. And so, getting around and then based off of that number, that person will take the lead after everyone shares and kind of unpack it. And then if they're open to feedback, which they always are, we'll share insight, so. Yeah, it's hard to tell sometimes where the benefit comes, if it's the sharing or listening, and for me, it typically, today I shared, so it was beneficial, but like for me, a lot of times it is in the listening.
I agree.
Because I do feel like alone in the way that I'm wired or the way that I am. And, that's just not the case when you're hearing other people's stories.
For sure.
I
find other people's stories or other people's processes or, how they might handle a situation, et cetera, like it becomes really expansive for me. There's always a moment I'm like, oh, right. Like I actually don't have to look at it that way, or I actually can figure this part out. There's always a moment of kind of like reflection, I think, via somebody else's reflection, right? Yeah. It ends up being helpful to the entire group. I've always found it to be that way in our own circle.
Yeah, so it's been great. Something that I hope to keep going and do one in Orange County. I had some businesses down there, so like I go down there every Tuesday, and and it is still super valuable.
Yeah. Do you ever feel like you get burnt out, or do you just feel? Are you just like really just connected and centered with yourself that?
No, I definitely get burnt out. But again, a lot of the things that motivates me, not I wouldn't say unfortunately, because I am grateful for the way that I'm wired. It's just the thing, like the feeling of wanting to be liked or wanting to let people down. Mm-hmm. So that's where sometimes the burnout comes, is where it's like, fuck, I really am not trying to drive an hour down and an hour back. I would really benefit from a quiet morning to myself and having coffee. And the whole men's group is a great place to work on that, because I still have this, like, no, I'm going to show up. I'm that guy who does that. Right. But I also know there has been times where I was like, man, I'm just not going to make it. Totally. And there's, it's a safe place, even though we don't like to use that word, but it is a safe place for me to do that. And where there's no like, oh, Jacob, you're being, what do you mean with that? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. So it's like, it's been very, very beneficial. And so hopefully, there's twice a week I'm meeting right now.
A lot.
I don't know.
That's a lot of stuff, man.
But, I think I really do try to emphasize, like, I might be piecing this together for people, but, for yourselves and for me, there's no leader in this thing. Like, of
course,
it might be happening at Lifted or one of our spaces, but like, this is impactful for everybody. So, I would really benefit from everyone, like,
we needed
stepping up and doing the thing too. You know what I mean? Absolutely. But it's been awesome. It's been awesome. The whole plant-based or the whole plant medicine community, we can hop into that for a whole other hour, but we will save that for another time.
Yeah.
So in regards to, I guess, your current project of relocating, there's obviously some challenges facing there. Are you in that challenge right now, or are you already looking towards the next thing? So
I will say, I feel like, and I was reflecting on this, which I later shared, of course, on social media, it's like, I feel like there are times where I'm scared shitless, but there's also these moments of like peace and excitement and trust. And I just feel like right now, I'm like, both are just existing at the same time. Yeah. Like I can acknowledge that my plate is full, stuffed, so much stuff on the plate, and I'd mentioned before that, there's of course these complications that come with moving. You think it's going to be seamless, but then something happens in the new place. We have to replace the AC, construction, this or that. Not to mention it's the middle of the summer in Pasadena, so it's hot, and there's so many nuances to it. And I know it's an expansion. I know that it's allowing me to get to more people. So it's like, I feel like right now there's just a little bit of a pressure cooker moment, and it's going to be hard for a second. It's going to be just like, balls to the wall, just go, just get it done until it's done kind of feeling. So I am feeling, but I think that there will be a moment where there's like, we get over the hump and we're like, okay, look, we did the damn thing.
That's awesome. And what is that timeline looking for you guys?
Well, I mean, we're really, Rez is just waiting to hear on the AC is the main thing, the air conditioning. We're just waiting to hear when that is. Our hope, fingers crossed, is that won't take too long. Like everything else is pretty done. Like we painted walls, we were redoing some of the bathroom stuff. So, a lot of it is fairly finished. It's just the air conditioning is the main thing. We're hoping to have a little bit of an open house 13th and the 14th of August.
Okay.
Just have like free classes and you can come take a tour, check it out. You know, like people of course are asking about parking and where they'd park. So this might be a good moment for them to like practice getting their parking. And then we'll slowly start integrating some classes over there. Our lease at our current location ends at the end of August. So end of
Crunch
August,
time.
we're out. We're in crunch.
Yeah. I mean, keep me posted on that. Would love to.
I will.
support in
Yeah.
any
I'd
way.
love to.
Do you have a big team over there of coaches or teachers?
Yeah, we have a pretty big team. We have about like 10 right now. We have some management that works with us as well. We have about 10 teachers, probably hiring some, we're currently hiring a couple more since we'll have more space to have some classes.
All right.
So we got a team, but like, there's so much of it that is like, we just got to do it
Yeah.
ourselves.
Well, maybe we have to talk about a trade. Trade.
I'm down. I thought about that. I was like,
maybe just start with
you scratch
us,
my
and then
back,
we
I'll
can
scratch
release it
yours.
to the team.
Yeah,
Perfect.
absolutely. I would love that.
Any other retreats or anything that you're hosting that you'd like to plug in?
Oh gosh, currently I actually just finished up some, but I will have some down the pipeline. They're just coming actually next year.
Cool.
I do 1-day retreats usually locally here in Pasadena. So our next one is probably going to be probably November. I have to get married first and make sure that everything goes to plan. But I do host 1-day retreats here pretty regularly.
Cool, yeah.
I found those to be really helpful because it's like, you want to retreat, but some, modern day humans don't have the time. So we usually gather on a Sunday and we'll do like a day, a hike around Pasadena, meet back at the studio, have
That's
food
awesome.
and a discussion topic that we usually work with.
That's awesome. And it doesn't, for me, this is me talking to myself, it doesn't need to be complicated.
No.
I get in my own way with doing this because I really want to pursue that more, especially as I'm trying to introduce these services that are somewhat novelties for a majority of people. They don't know, right? And it's like, my goal here, coming from like gym ownership and knowing the benefit of like reoccurring revenue and EFT and all that stuff, my just things like, oh, this offering, this is going to be a membership-based facility, blah, blah, blah. And, sure, pandemic was rough and I, come to realize this is really an a la carte type of thing. There's so much of a mindset shift I need to work on in order to get people, myself included, to value this enough to make this a practice.
Absolutely.
And that's been a challenge.
Yeah, of course.
And like the a la carte thing, I just don't really like it because you can't really control it. And since I'm not this
unless they're like larger events, sometimes I think that's where it can.
Right. And that's what I think I can make that work. And it's like, I'm not really a dialed in marketer where it's like, I just want a revolving door of people coming in. So I think the retreats, like I want to build out my Dodge ProMaster that I have like as like a little RV right now, like strip it and build it into like an 8-person sauna.
Yeah.
And just like cruise up and like bring the ice bath.
Yeah.
And now we have this sauna. We can do
or
a
even
little
like a camping
stuff.
thing. You can actually press forward. I talk about that's like on the horizon where I'm like, I see bigger retreats, getting international, going to, camping trips, things like that. Cause I also think that really like cultivates the community that I'm trying to build. Yeah. And I will say, I from what I've observed, you're not just like trying to sell this membership. That's not true to you. Like you embody that and you share that, I think really like eloquently and like smartly, maybe that's not the right word, but you share it really well, the way that you share what you're doing and why. And so, I'm hoping that just like continues to translate and ripple.
I appreciate that. And, I want to stay true to that. I want to play the long game. I want to help people shift their mindsets. And I'll tell you, like, been hard as hell over these past couple of years to not just be like, play the short game. You need, you need the cash grab.
You just need it. You're just like, whatever you got to do.
And like, one of the crazy things is like, when I'm trying to negotiate with my landlord, who's like an older guy or whatever it is, he was like, you just need to get those girls out in the smoothie bar, out on the sidewalk wearing blah, blah, blah. I'm like, bro, like this is the exact opposite of
world.
You know what I mean? It's like, but don't, at times it's like, fuck, I was thinking.
It's almost like you want to sell yourself short.
I was like, I'll put on some pasties. I'll start there. I'll see what that gets me. But like it is really hard to sometimes to stay true to that, because, we need validation. We need to know that we're on the right path. And sometimes when you're leading that way and you're not getting, when you're tied to say, money as being the thing that's validating, which it's hard to remove from in this.
But at the end of the day, you're running a
Right.
business,
Yeah.
and you yourself have put in so much energy and time and probably money into this business. So it's like, it's kind of like it can feel like all or nothing, you know? And I find that what happens with us is that like you get really stuck in the micro too, where it's just like, I just need that sale. There's so much micro with that doesn't allow you to actually span out and be like, oh, what's the macro? What am I really trying to create?
Yeah.
So.
Well, this was awesome. I really do appreciate having really our first conversation on this
No, it
microphone,
really was.
even though I would probably even appreciate it even more over some coffee or tea, which we can
Down
still
for
do.
both. Like, let's be homies. Like, I'm around.
Absolutely.
I live here.
Please. Yeah. I will, again, keep me posted on that opening
I
day.
will. I really will. Yeah, for sure.
This will probably come out just right after that.
Yeah.
So we'll make sure to plug people in and come and check it out. And yoga is definitely a practice that I've had with me at times. I fall off of. But yeah, I would love to welcome that back. Right. So any parting thoughts, any parting words?
Gosh, just take care of yourself, man. That's how I feel towards people. Just keep taking care of yourselves, whatever that looks like for you. Even if it's not yoga, even if it's taking a sip of water or taking one breath.
Yeah.
I think keeping it simple right now is just how I'm feeling.
Yeah, let's do it. Where can people find you if they wanted to get in touch?
Oh, they can find me all over. They can find me on Instagram. At One Life, One Yoga is our Instagram. Mine is just _ Lizzie Pereira, which is my name. Of course, there's a salt studio and pantry shop. And I'm around. I'm available. So, if ever people want to reach out, I'm there.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much. And you guys can always find me at Cub _ or like I said, if you're local in Pasadena, come and say hello over at the Space Bar Wellness or Lifted Botanical Bar. Tonight's pretty cool. We're going to do a little Reiki workshop as well as sound bath and a little kava ceremony. Hopefully I'll find a little woo-saw in that later. Yeah. But until next time, we'll catch you guys later. See ya.
Thank you. Nice.